Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to Yoshi's Safari. Yes, we are playing on actual hardware. Although I have to do something real quick because of the category for this game. So, LRXY start. And the pink hellscape means that we are in hard mode. So I'll explain more of what that means in a second. We have to get this all coordinated first. So, story behind this game is, Prince's friends from Jewelry Land, which, I don't know, has that shown up in any other Mario games? Well, anyway, the friends from Jewelry Land, Prince Pine and King Fret, have lost their gems. We assume a Koopa's involved. And, I apologize before the run starts, because I'm going to mess up the name of every Koopa and enemy in this game. This is like the only Mario game I play. Great way to kick off the Mario block. I'm going to play with 2 controllers, and I'll explain why when the run officially starts. So, time will start when the screen fades in, which will be now. So you can do these levels in any order. I have a specific order I do them in, because it has to do with that power meter at the top of the screen. So, you can extend the power meter by picking up fire flowers. However, the fire flowers location changes a bit depending on what order you do the stages in. And I do a particular order of stages that ensures I get the maximized power bar as fast as I possibly can. And I just took one of those gates. Gates are another big way to save time in this game, because some of the levels, the gates don't really make a difference. Some of the gates, however, affect item spawns, like that one, and some of them allow you to take a shorter path or face fewer enemies. So I have a very specific order for the levels, and also specific gates that I will pass through to ensure that we get through this as fast as possible. Alright, that will bring us to our first boss. And, this is, I don't know his name, Bram Stoker's Koopa. The first phase of this fight is really simple. You just wait for him to move and then shoot the big shoot me here button that appears behind him. Now, I'm not going to care too much about Yoshi's well-being, which will be a pattern for much of this run. However, I do want to make sure he doesn't take too much damage, because you lose a life, you start the boss fight over. Now, this second phase, there are a couple of things that I have to do first. First is take the fists off of him, and second, I need to... well, I'll explain that when we get there. But part of the reason I use 2 controllers is that you can move Yoshi both during the stages themselves and during the boss fights. Most of the bosses in this game are just programmed to attack and shoot straight ahead, because they don't want to assume that you'll be using the second controller. So if you just move Yoshi to the side, that'll prevent you from taking a bunch of extra hits, which makes hard mode a little easier to get through. Also, RNG is a major factor in this run. So every boss generally has at least 2 or 3 different actions they can do. Most of the bosses in this game have a weak point that will only open for a certain action. And RNG completely dictates, like, how long you'll be able to shoot at them for. And how long you'll be able to damage them, ultimately. So, this level, admittedly, I don't have to go to right now, but I go to it because it has the most RNG-heavy section in the entire game, and it basically determines how the entire run will go. Okay, we skipped the gate for this one. So part of the reason I started playing 2 controllers for this is that, Like, without it, Yoshi will automatically path around the stage. However, that doesn't really work sometimes. I've had multiple instances where, when I was just playing with the Super Scope, Yoshi automatically walked off the side of a stage. So ever since then, I've been using two controllers to kind of help guide him around the corners and not walk to his own doom. So, this is a nice little mini-boss. I just let him hit me with one boomerang, because it helps him stay in place and be easier to shoot for most of the fights. Alright, worst boss in the game. So, this is Mary Sue Koopa, and the only way she can take damage is by dropping one of these anvils on her head. Man. But it's completely random which pipe she pops out of and how many bombs she throws from each pipe. So, in the current record run, this fight took 20 seconds. But, like, in the best run before that, it took a minute, and the RNG can get really bad and cause us to take, like, 2 minutes. Oh, man. We may or may not be here for a while. But yeah, I'm getting a really bad pattern for this. This is ultimately what determines, like, if you're on record pace or not. We are most definitely not now. And that's another thing, is this can actually cause you to run out of time on the boss fight and have to start the whole thing over. But the good news is, worst fight in the game is behind us now. So, I mentioned that I was running on hard mode, and now I kind of have a chance to discuss what that means. The level layouts are the same. However, enemy spawns are a little different, as in there are more of them. Most enemies, not all of them, but most of them will take extra damage. Stuff like the flying Goombas and the flying Koopas will take the same amount of damage, but everything else will take like 2 hits or more. Yoshi takes double damage from everything. Enemies have twice the amount of health that they normally do, except for these guys. Oh wait, I already said that, never mind. And bosses will move twice as fast and attack twice as often. So like, if they get an attack pattern, like these mini-bosses are kind of an exception to that. If they get an attack pattern, they'll shoot you twice as many times as they would otherwise. Alright, so this is a nice simple boss, because its weak point is constantly exposed. This is, Punk Rock Koopa. It's the simplest fight in the game, as you might expect, considering that we're in World 1. Just shoot him in the googly eyes, and then eventually you'll get to the next phase. This is a little trickier, because normally you're supposed to wait for him to pop up and shoot him, but if you kind of aim for where his hands are, you can cause him to pop up and take an extra hit. Also, that item that I used helps reduce damage, which, if you were on normal mode, it would actually make you invulnerable for a little bit. So that's another difference with hard mode. Oh, Iggy! I appreciate that someone out there knows the names of these Koopa kids. Because I don't. Alright, so that will take us to World 4. The worlds are going to go pretty much in order from this point out. Even when, spoiler, we get to the next stage and more levels show up. Okay, now the one thing we absolutely don't want to do here is fall into the Pepto-Bismol. This is one of the levels where you can fall off the stage. If you do, there's a slow animation that plays where you're helped out of the water and then respawn a little further back from where you were. Now, if we were playing this on normal mode, I would eventually pick up a star power-up and just wouldn't have to shoot for half of this section. Hard mode, you do not have that luxury. So I'm going to have to shoot absolutely everything through this section. Which actually brings me to another thing about this game. You've probably noticed it, but just about everything causes this game to lag. So one thing I'm trying to do is when I do shoot, I shoot in like short controlled bursts. Because if I shoot too much, the game will slow down. Right, now we are underwater. Don't ask how Yoshi's breathing, he just can. There's another enemy that takes multiple hits. They're not as annoying here as when they show up in some later stages. These are bloopers. Okay, I know what these are called. That's one for me. Alright. Oh, I accidentally shot Yoshi in the back of the head. He's fine. The important thing is we got that Fire Flower power up, so we'll have max power for the rest of this run. Which is good, because there's another mini-boss coming up. And this is probably the most straightforward one, because you don't even need to move to attack the things that are being launched at you. I will, however, pause a little bit here and there, just to make sure that my fire rate stays high. Alright, and with this gate, we bypass a massive section of the level, and in fact, don't have to shoot anything until the boss. The boss, however, can be a little hectic when it gets to phase 2, so I'm actually gonna go quiet a little bit for this. Alright, that was a pretty good fight. And the thing with that is, when he gets to phase 2, he can appear at like 3 different elevations. So before he appears on screen, I do like a vertical slice with the super scope just to make sure that I hit him. Otherwise, he can shoot a bunch of torpedoes really fast, and you can get caught in this loop where you're continuously trying to like shoot down the torpedo so Yoshi doesn't get hit, but you're not doing any damage to the boss. So, onward to level 5. And we don't have to worry about Yoshi falling off the stage for a little bit yet. Now, there is one thing you can do for most of these stages, which is a minor time save, but is really hard to set up, so most people don't go for it. But if you have enemies that appear at like a sharp corner, you can have Yoshi intentionally run into them and then bounce off of them to go around the corner faster. But it's kind of tough to pull off, and you also risk getting stuck in the level geometry, which has ruined a couple of runs for me. Also, those jump pads that you see, I have to hit A on the controller to get Yoshi to jump over it. And if you don't, for these jump pads, you fall off the stage and end up having to back up and try the jump pad again, which is a massive waste of time. There are some jump pads where you don't fall off the stage, but you do land on like an electrical field, and then Yoshi continually takes damage. Okay, he didn't give me the second jump, which is good. That's one of the few mini-bosses where there's like a certain pattern that I'm looking for him to do. Unfortunately, he gave it to me. Alright, it's time for another really annoying RNG heavy boss. Say hello to Ant Frog. So the first phase, really simple. You just shoot the turrets that are on him. Sometimes this boss can end up going too far to one side of the screen, and I won't be able to shoot the left side of him, which is actually a problem for a couple of bosses in this game. That's why I'm kind of trying to get some shots in on the left side while I can. Ideally, he would just stay on the ground the entire time. The jumps are part of the RNG. Now I want him to open up his hat, which he is not doing. If the RNG is really bad in this, we're going to be pretty close to the estimate. Okay, so he opens the hat and you see exfoliating facial cream Koopa. So when he opens the hat, he'll pop up and try to throw bombs at you. But you can make him pop up a little sooner by shooting his hand when it appears on the edge of the frog. Oh, this is really not a good pattern. Ideally, he would just open the top hat for almost the entire fight. Because he can do it multiple times, like in a row, like that. There we go. So that is significantly slower than what would be considered an ideal fight. Morton, okay. I'll try to remember these names, but I make no promises. So that will take us to World 6. Now, Yoshi actually has a couple of other things he can do. Like, he can duck, which is supposed to help you avoid enemies, but kinda doesn't work. I'm gonna try and stay off to one side so I can avoid shooting some of these. Excellent. It is possible to, like, jump over the moles and the bombs, but when they explode, they can sometimes just hit you out of the air anyway. These shells will appear in random patterns. I just kind of jump my way through them. It is possible for some of them to like bounce the opposite direction, and you like end up chasing them through part of the level. This gate is relatively negligible in terms of time difference, but I go for it anyway because it usually has like a couple fewer enemy spawns on it. Okay, this is kind of a tough boss. So I actually have to care about Yoshi's well-being for this one, which automatically makes it inferior. But I'm gonna try and shoot according to whatever side its projectiles are coming from, just to make sure that Yoshi survives the fight. Because even when you move him off to the side, he can still get hit a lot. Okay, so far so good. This is where the double damage on Yoshi really becomes a factor. So that's another boss which is somewhat random in its second phase, because... Oh, that's postmodern Punk Koopa. So it can stay in the water for, like, anywhere from 1 to 3 amounts of time. Ideally, you want him to, like, just immediately jump out of the water, but he usually doesn't do that. Okay, so this is going to be the last boss for this section, at least. Spoiler, there's more to the game. But these enemies are perfectly safe to jump over. However, I will shoot the last ones, just to make sure they don't hit me on the jump pad. Ideally, you don't want to get hit at all, just to make sure you take full advantage of the speed boost you get from that pad. This is something I'll do in a lot of stages, is kind of move Yoshi off to one side, just to make sure that there are fewer enemies that I have to hit to ensure I get through the level safely and quickly. Except for when I brain fart and hit jump instead of shoot. That was your fault. Oh, we got a shell chase. Okay, so I'm actually in pretty rough shape for this boss. I took way more hits than I was planning on, so I'm gonna have to be a little careful here. Right, oh man, he's already giving me a bad pattern. So ideally you want him to stay on screen and lob bombs the entire time. Oh man, this is a really bad pattern. So this is another boss where one of its weak points is just completely off screen. Alright, on to phase 2. And there's an extremely long transition into this phase. So, what we want him to do is open the basket and stand still so that we can shoot Fonzie Von Koopa as many times as possible. Oh, and that's the bad movement pattern again. Most often he will do this, where he occasionally opens the basket and moves around, but yeah, there is a pattern where he'll stand like that, he'll stand completely still, and that'll allow you to get as many shots in as possible. Okay, so that is the first set of levels for the game. Alright, that smile from Yoshi gets me every time. Alright, so there's going to be a cutscene that I have to skip after the screen. It basically just says, oh, there's more levels for you to play. Get to it. Now, these levels are a little more complicated than the first set of levels, in different ways. This is actually a fairly short stage, but it has a mini-boss that can be really annoying, and it also has a boss that is extremely annoying. So the mini-boss is going to be right here. Not taking the gate for this level is actually significantly faster. So we have the blue fire to contend with. I'm kind of rocking Yoshi back and forth in an effort to, like, keep the enemy relatively centered on screen, just to make it a little easier to shoot. Also, if I do this just right, I can ensure that he doesn't get hit at all by the blue fire. Now, prepare for lag. yet. Okay, we made it. There's nothing I can do to prevent the game from lagging that badly. Like, whether I shoot, whether I don't shoot, it's bad either way. Usually you can slip through that without getting hit by any of the fire guys, but oh well. Alright, so this fight is going to be against Wizard Koopa, and I'll explain afterward why this fight's annoying, because I really need to focus. Alright, phase 1. Phase 2 is significantly harder. Okay. So, that boss in the first phase can teleport 1 or 2 times and appear in 4 different locations. In the second phase, it teleports and disappears faster, and can teleport between 1 and 4 times in 3 different locations. So, and it goes away really fast because of the hard mode movement speed boost. So, that's one of the areas where hard mode actually does sort of live up to its name. But welcome to the haunted house, and this is where I usually lose the most time because these boos can be extremely annoying to deal with. So you shoot them, first of all you're facing them, and they're still coming after you, which I don't know much about Mario lore, but I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be a thing. But they come after you, you shoot them, and they kind of hide their faces a bit. And then after a couple seconds, they'll continue coming after you. So I have to wait a little bit before I shoot any of them to be sure that I can get past them safely. And this gate will give us another time save. And also help us face fewer of those boos for this particular section of the level. By the way, this is the level where I got Yoshi stuck in the geometry a couple of times. So, really hoping that does not happen in the middle of this run. If you see a part where I am deliberately avoiding any walls, that's probably where it happened. Okay, so we're going to have a mini-boss that's coming up relatively soon, which, yep, here it is. Do we get the good pattern or the bad pattern? Okay, that's the bad pattern so far. That's the okay pattern. That's the good pattern. Wow, Lakitu, knowing that we're in a marathon and showing off all the different attack patterns. So it can throw 1, 2, or 3 spiked guys. And I missed the jump pad, so that'll make the boss fight a little more interesting. We might actually not make it to the boss fight. Just kidding. Alright, so, based on everything we've seen in this level, what do you think the boss is going to be? Just throwing that out there. Well, would you believe? It's a Boo. Okay, so the Boo will occasionally go immaterial, and during that phase, I can't shoot him. You have to land a set amount of shots on him to initiate the second phase, and he'll also be one of those bosses that goes way too far to the side of the screen, and you can't shoot the weak spot, which is just the mouth. Oh, I probably should have mentioned that mushroom refills your health, huh? Whatever. More dramatic that way. Alright, this one's a little more complicated, but also takes fewer hits. So you have to hit the Boo with the tongues sticking out. And it cycles through all 3 of them being at the top position. But it always starts with the one with the tongue sticking out being at the top. So if you just focus on that one position, you can get through the fight relatively quickly. Alright, I hope that didn't come over the mic. That was the sound of my elbow cracking. This is a fairly straightforward level. It is one of those levels where there are going to be a whole bunch of boosts leading into enemies. I actually intentionally, like, slid Yoshi along the wall there, because otherwise, he can end up just headbutting the wall for a few seconds. And doing that slows him down and helps him make the turn a little easier. The mini-boss so nice they had to reuse it twice. Alright, so that star is actually fairly important for when you're playing this game casually. When you're playing normally, it's important. On hard mode, you have to take a certain path to be able to get it. Although it's not particularly necessary when you see the strategy for how to beat this boss. Because it's the one, like, Mario enemy that I, like, bothered learning the name of, because it's football related. So say hello to Charging Chuck. Star will make you invulnerable. We want him to stay on the ground as much as possible. So I'm shooting him out of the air because if you just let him land, he will do this ground pound. And while that's active, because it's active for like 4 seconds, you can't shoot, you can't move Yoshi, and he basically just gets some free shots on you. Alright, that was actually a pretty decent Charging Chuck fight. So, I just realized the level that comes after this. This level is the reason that I started doing the 2 controller setup. We saw that one water level where there was the wall and then nothing. There's nothing on both sides of this. There's going to be plenty of enemies trying to knock me into the water. I'm actually going to kind of slalom my way through that. So, an okay run of this level is only falling into the water once. It's pretty rare that I've gotten through this stage without falling into the water at all. A little hard to tell sometimes where the edge of the stage is. I'll admit, I'm just kind of guessing at points. Okay, so there's going to be another section with fish coming up, and that's like the last real area where I'm at risk of falling into the water. Alright, here we go. Okay, now for the boss fight. This is another one where RNG can make it take way longer than it should. So you're going to have these 4 different turrets on the back of this mechanized Koopa thing. And it can either stay above water and shoot at you, or dive underwater. It'll appear from 4 different locations. You can shoot it as it goes into and out of the water to try and save a little time. But the annoying thing is you can only land 1 shot at a time and then have to wait for it to refresh. And then you wait for the turret to transition. What's really annoying is if you land the last shot as it's submerging, it completely re-emerges, still in the animation of trying to replace whoever's on the turret. And you can't land any shots in that time. So, really hoping that does not happen. Alright, on to phase 2. So, I need to wait for this thing to open its face and then shoot it, but it only likes to do that every so often. Wow, it was actually being cooperative for a moment there. Alright. I was worried for a moment that I would have to care about Yoshi's well-being. But that will bring us to the final stage. Also, trying to wear headphones and not hit this microphone? Oh man. The things you do to run a Super Scope game on actual hardware. Anyway, final level. Guess who? So, there are a couple of new things in this level that are mainly just a new enemy. and I will get to that when it actually shows up. But yeah, you're going to see a little of everything except for like the water stages kind of packed into this level in some form or another. Here we are, this is the new enemy. This is another relatively negligible gate. It is slightly faster to go through it, but not a huge difference like some of the other gates from earlier in the game. That section was fairly... It does take a while to get to the next area here, but we're almost there. You can actually just jump over these guys too, but... Why get a super scope game if you're not going to shoot anything, right? So, before we get to the actual boss, we have a little rush of all the mini-bosses that we saw up to this point. So my life is actually going to get relatively low, but the good news is there's a refill that happens before the boss, so it's not going to be a major issue. No good pattern this time. So, it's going to be the chain of fire? Right, so there's that. And the health pickup. So even on hard mode, you're not at much risk of dying on the boss. So there are a few different phases to this fight. First phase, you gotta shoot the hands. And then you gotta wait for the torso to open up. And then one last bit of RNG to deal with is in the next to last phase. So you need to shoot both of his hands so that he doesn't lob projectiles at you. However, it is possible for him to move so far to the left of this... Okay, good, we avoided it. He can move so far to the left of the screen that his hand is off screen, like that, and you just can't shoot him. Which drags out the boss fight significantly. Then you just gotta shoot him down the throat for whenever he breathes fire. And time will be coming up soon. Alright, that is it. 43:20. So the record in this, which happened earlier this week while I was practicing, is about 41:32, 41:33. But that was a run that had really good RNG on the majority of the bosses in this game. Also, want to give a quick shout out to Bebebe, who is the current top time for the normal mode of this run. Since I never properly told you this before, omedetou gozaimasu. Yeah, that is going to do it for Yoshi's Safari. I can't skip over these, but yeah, thank you, Retro Gaming Live, for letting me help out with Feed the Kids however I could, and giving Super Scope Games a chance to shine. I will be back later tonight with some 720, but until then, thank you for letting me show this off, and hope the rest of the marathon goes really well for everybody. Take care. Also, always shut off the Super Scope. This thing burns through batteries like crazy.